Hi everyone, you can call me Yumi. That's not my real name, that's my cat's name. And I'm making a Phainon guide for HSR for the first time ever. It's not a full guide, but it's just for, as you can guess from the title and the thumbnail, it's for Remembrance Trailblazer specifically, and most importantly with Sunday. And what's the reason why I'm making this video is because I've noticed that a lot of people um actually have like trouble maintaining uptime on their support buffs because of like their how they use mem in their rotations. So I'm gonna show the usual rotation that people do with this team comp of Sunday Bronya and RMC with Phainon, who is at base speed. Everyone is at hyper speed, 167 RMC, Sunday 164 and 161 Bronya. I know getting that much speed is a bit daunting, right? But for these supports, specifically Sunday and Bronya, you don't actually need to get that much crit damage on them, because while they do scale their crit damage buffs on their own crit damage, the conversion isn't actually that high, so getting more doesn't increase that much. And Finan already gives himself so much crit damage in the first place, especially with his build, because you're not building speed on him, so you can allocate a lot of those substats into crit damage. So speed is the priority because this is a one turn of Phainon duration, a Phainon rotation. So what that means is getting Phainon's ult in just one rotation using all your supports. Now I'm E6 on Phainon, so we can just remove 6 score flames from that. It doesn't really change his crit stats and attack stats and all that stuff. So yeah, it's not like it's inflated with like eidolons. It's just his score flames, so just reduce 6 from that, and with this rotation we can achieve a 13 stack on Phainon. Not this rotation, well, this rotation also does it, but there's a problem with this rotation, and I'm going to show it. So, what people do is they summon Mem first, like this. They don't use RMC's technique because they want the team to get hit by this giant robot so that Mem can get charged and be able to advance Phainon in between Sunday and Bronya's turn. Because otherwise, if there is no hit RNG, Mem would only advance Phainon after Bronya advances Phainon, so the advance is wasted. So that's two core flames missed out on, right? So they do this, they summon Mem, then get hit. So it's at 96, which Sunday Sunday can just do this. And then alt. We'll get Mem after Phainon. So yeah, this is how they do it. However, there's a problem with this rotation because what people don't know, so Mem's buffs last for 3 turns, right? And Sunday's crit damage lasts for 3 turns. However, what people don't know is Sunday's damage buffs, either from his skill, which is the 30% if you're not a summoner, or 80% if you're a summoner, only lasts 2 turns. A lot of people forget that, because Sunday's crit rate buffs last for 3 turns, but his damage buffs last for 2 turns. And if you're doing a 1 turn ult rotation with Phainon, you especially want to take care of his Sunday's technique, which is another 50% damage bonus, which combined with the 30% is basically like pretending Phainon is a summon character, right? With 80% damage bonus. Phainon is the mm, one of the only DPSs that can make full use of Sunday's technique, because his technique is usually overlooked because yeah, it's 50% damage bonus, so you get to pretend your DPS is a summon character for like 2 turns. But with Phainon, you can get that 80% damage bonus for the entirety of his ult, which is a lot. 50% is a lot if you combine it with all the other damage bonus that Sunday has. It's basically like he, because Sunday's usual criticism is that he buffs less than Bronya, right? Because Bronya has her 66% damage buff on skill, or 96% if you have her S1. But Sunday can now almost straight up compete with Bronya, like be better actually with his signature. So both of them have their signatures. My Bronya is E1 S1 while my Sunday is E0 S1. With both of their signatures, Sunday actually provides more damage bonus than Bronya now, compared to what his usual criticisms about him were, because Sunday 80% with the technique and his light cone, which for a 1 turn ult rotation for Phainon, you usually have 2 stacks of this, so that's 30%. So that's like 110% damage bonus, while Bronya's is only 96%. Of course, Bronya has her attack bonus, but Sunday also has crit rate, which also translates to more damage consistency, right? So Sunday now actually buffs a lot better than Bronya, as long as you keep his technique and skill damage buffs. But what people don't do is try to keep that. They do this rotation, and what happens? Sunday's damage buffs only have 1/3 remaining, and reduce my core flames by 6. That's 7 core flames. We're gonna get 9 with a skill, but we're still not at ult, and we still have Bronya to go to. So all of that 80% damage buff is just gonna disappear. And people do that a lot of the time, and they're complaining that, oh, my Phainon's not doing much damage, or is Phainon actually mid? I'm like, oh, that just pisses me off. Sorry, but like, it's a bit of a skill issue. Like, look, by the time I advance Phainon with Bronya, he no longer has Sunday's damage percent buffs. So why are we just throwing away 80% damage bonus? Like, what's going on here? Like, so the fix for this is actually RMC's light cone. And I've been seeing a lot of people change to this technique after a while. In beta it was just non-existent. Well, I got this idea from someone who did beta, although they didn't say what Lycon they used. So when I tried it on my own, or I didn't have beta access to Phainon, but I did like calculate with my own like surrogate team, testing how RMC could achieve their ult without like hit RNG or something, right? And this is the solution, the 3-star light cone Shadowburn. So if you don't have this, well, just ignore this video, I guess, but you need at least superimposition 3 of this to make this work for RMC. Now what this light cone does is, as you've noticed, it gives 1 skill point the first time you summon a Memo Sprite, and it gives 20 energy. And what happens, this light cone opens up a lot of things for a Phainon Ult rotation. First, it lets you use RMC's technique and no longer rely on hit RNG, meaning your supports can stay healthy, right? And never get hit for the first rotation. So since we all know that Phainon's ult, or rather his technique, regens 25 energy to the team, that's why RMC is at 105 after, you start with half energy, which is 80, and then you gain 25, so it puts them at 105. We all know that skills and HSR give 30 energy, and with ERR rope and an ERR planar set, we get 35 energy. And that's not enough to get RMC's ult, so that puts us at like 140. So you're lacking 20 energy. So there. By using RMC's light cone as Shadowburn, we can get their ult, and like basically they do this. You skill with RMC, you get ult, and then you instant ult to pull Phainon first. And the reason why this is important, because Mem's buffs last for 3 turns. So if you use it as the first advance of the rotation, you don't lose it by the time you reach Bronya's advance. Unlike the other rotation which most people use, it wastes Sunday's 2 turn buffs, since Sunday is the one advancing first. So we do this. Sunday. Phainon again. And then Bronya. As you can see, we can reach Phainon's ultimate since I'm E6, so we subtract 6 from his core flame, so that's 11. So by the time I use my next skill, it's at 13, so I can easily get a Phainon ult without ever getting hit, without relying on hit RNG, which is really consistent, and it's also really autopay friendly if you're not E6. So I used this team when I was still at E2 Phainon, and it was really, really smooth. Like, the autoplay was just smooth like butter, okay? So I really like this, and look at the buffs. Everything is here, even Sunday's technique and his skill damage bonus. So we're keeping all of the buffs for Phainon, which, it's just a 60% damage bonus compared to the one where RMC has the moment of victory, victory in a blink, and the 5-star Hertoshop light cone. But like, why are you trading 80% damage bonus and a comfier rotation for just mere 16% damage bonus and a little bit of crit damage for RMC or speed, right? Getting 160 speed is really easy without that 5-star Hertoshop light cone, and the crit damage is not that important for RMC because the crit conversion, the crit damage conversion for their like crit damage aura buffs, the conversion is not that high. It just the base value is high enough that even if you have like 180 crit damage, it already buffs your team's crit a lot. The same goes for Sunday and Bronya's crit damage. So yeah, you really shouldn't just focus on the crit damage and the potential of the crit damage share, right? This one prioritizes ult ult rotation, a smoother ult rotation for Phainon, and keeps Sunday's damage percent buffs, which is a way higher value than what the other Remembrance Lycans could ever give. And since the lower stats don't matter because Phainon is just gonna make RMC disappear anyways, you're not gonna worry about RMC dying so easily. And well, this only matters if your Phainon can kill in one ult, because I don't really know how this team fares after the first ult, because my build is sort of cracked. By the way, my Phainon is almost at he's almost at 80. Okay, um, he's almost at 80% crit rate. He's at 79. He reaches 79% crit rate for my build with attack chest. Yeah, my build is kind of cracked, so it might not be that relatable that I can kill everything in one ult, but maybe the reason why your final needs a second ult to kill is because you're wasting Sunday's damage buffs. So I'm just doing this guide to help people to keep their buffs, and also to remind them that Sunday's damage buffs only last for 2 turns. People tend to misremember his buffs and think, oh, everything lasts for 3 turns because his crit rate lasts for 3 turns and his ult lasts indefinitely, or like almost 3 turns. But like, yeah, his damage buffs only last 2 turns, and that's a lot. That's a thing that people tend to forget. So you just for Phainon, every buff on him matters. You shouldn't just gimp out on 80% damage bonus. I've seen a lot of people downplay what I've been saying, because they would say like, oh, that's just 50% or that's just 80%. He's already oversaturated on damage bonus because of Bronya. And I'm like, it's free damage. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to keep. It's so easy. It's such an easy rotation. By the way, there's no DDD, there's no Eagle set. I hate all of that sweaty stuff. This is just hyperspeed Sunday Bronya RMC. This is really, really easy. It's not like I have to think about AV and I have to think about a second ult rotation or the enemy RNG. It's so easy. It's such an easy rotation that I don't know why people are downplaying it as if it's so hard to achieve, to not waste Sunday's damage buffs. So this is a guide showing that how you can keep Sunday's damage buffs when you're using them with RMC. Now, if you're not using RMC, well, of course this video won't matter as much. But there's also a thing where the same with, if since we're talking about Sunday's technique, which is the 50% damage bonus and wasting it, a lot of people also like use Sunday's ult on, for example, I've seen people play speed boots Phainon, right? Like Phainon, Sunday Bronya, right? That's the order of their speed tuning. And I've seen, when the enemy hits their Sunday and they get their ult, right, from the energy, while it's still Phainon's turn, it hasn't been Sunday's turn yet, they cast Sunday's ult immediately, which pisses me off. That's another pet peeve of mine, and I don't want to put it in a separate video because it's just one thing, right? It's just one mistake. But read his technique. After this technique is used, the first time Sunday uses an ability on an allied target, the target's damage increases by 50%. That includes his ult. So if you're using Sunday's ult on Phainon's turn before Sunday's turn even arrives, and you're still having Bronya in the next action order, that technique is gonna disappear. Okay? You're wasting 50% damage bonus because you're just itching to click Sunday's ultimate because it's shiny and it made a little sound. That shouldn't be the case, okay? I've corrected a lot of people on it, like when they do their showcases, and I really appreciate the people that, you know, they take my comments and then they saying, okay, I'll do that next time. And I really like that because with Phainon, because of his gameplay, which is I'll take everyone's buffs and I'll solo, right? You really can't skimp out on any buffs, okay? You should treasure every buff for Phainon. People have that with Bronya, right? They like, oh, I must ult on Bronya's advance turn, right? I must ult after Phainon gets advanced by Bronya to keep her huge damage bonus. But they don't give the same energy to Sunday's damage bonus duration. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we wasting damage buff durations? You want Phainon to finish as fast as possible within one ult, as much as possible. If you can't achieve it, then, well, maybe with your second ult, you only need one more meteor to finish the enemy. That's what could have made a difference with the 50% damage bonus from Sunday, or the 80% if you wasted the whole damage bonus duration, right? Like, it's a really small thing. You might not think it's much because, it's oversaturated. Everything, that's all people say. It's oversaturated, it's diluted, it's diminishing returns. And I'm like, it's free damage. It doesn't take much. Just save everything that you can, okay? Be really frugal with finance buff durations. If you can give the same energy to Bronya's buffs, you should give the same energy to Sunday's buffs. So that's what this video is for. And the reason why it's RMC is because that usually happens because people don't carefully make Mem go first using Shadowburn. And I'm appreciating that a lot of showcases in the current beta for 3.5 have been using Shadowburn a lot these days, and the showcases for on YouTube too, because of finally they're realizing the importance of Shadowburn. Like, you're just losing out on like 16% damage bonus from the other Remembrance Light Codes, but with this one you just prioritize a smoother rotation, keeping Sunday's 80% damage buffs active. You know what I mean? And it's also safer on the skill point side because it refunds another skill point. So for you, after your first final ult, it won't be as SP. Your SP won't be so empty, and it also helps your supports keep healthy since you entered your first ult without them ever taking damage. And we know in HSR, it's usually the first wave of enemies in MOC that really hit a lot. So when you reach the boss, they're not usually the threats that much anymore. For example, Hule. If it was Hule's side, Hule is less scarier for Phainon teams than the actual first wave, which is the Lion, the Sun Griffon, and the archers that it summons, right? Since those archers deal a lot of damage to Phainon teams, especially if it's sustainless, using this rotation just protects you. And as you can see, as you can see, after our rotation, the enemy still hasn't summoned ads. So this also buffs your finance damage in a way because the enemies haven't summoned mobs yet, which means your meteors bounces will focus on the important enemies, which technically boosts your damage because your damage is no longer getting bounced on disposable ads, right? That don't help with your clearing. So if you use it like this, see, the damage gets focused on the elites. Of course, I'm E6, so that was just this was just a deletion, right? But even if you're not E6 or E2, all of the damage matters at the end of the day. So this is really just a PSA to not waste damage buff uptime, whether it's with Sunday or if it's like, even if it's like with any other support like Sparkle, or even though I really don't recommend Sparkle for Phainon, or anyone with a limited duration on their buffs, right? Like you really should keep pay attention to them and not just blindly follow creators out there with their rotations, especially when mainstream creators do this. They back when Finan first released, they did that did really horrible rotations, and then I can't blame them since Finan was new, but like you should be knowing what to do, okay? Anyways, yeah, that's it. Please use Shadowburn on your RMC if you're playing with Finon and you want a one turn alt rotation. And if you're not playing hyperspeed supports, right? Like say, um, even if you were running a speedy Finon, you'd still want Mem to advance him first. Maybe you could like Okay, maybe with Phainon, Speed Boots, Sunday Bronya, and RMC, you can still have Shadowburn on RMC, keep the ult, and wait for Phainon's first turn to finish, pull Phainon back, apply the true damage buff on him, skill again, and then you can go with the Sunday Bronya rotation after, which in turn like gets you two more core flames from that, which if you're reaching a point where you have to go for a second ult, you already have two extra core flames at the ready, right? So yeah, that's pretty Shadowburn is pretty good for RMC with Final. Of course with other characters it's a bit redundant, right? And it could even mess up rotations since you generally want to keep the ult for RMC as a 40% mem charge amp instead of like a 10% instant pull. So yeah, that's my guide on how to use Remembrance Trailblazer with Finon, especially with Sunday and Bronya, and making sure that the buffs are kept. So thank you for listening if you've made it this far. Sorry I rambled a lot because I'm really passionate about Finon and theory crafting about him and his rotations with other supports. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to comment. If you like the video that I made, please like. I don't know if you subscribe. I really make content really slowly, but I do plan to make like a Finon guide for like a full Finon guide, because a lot of people these days still don't understand how to play him or how to build him or his supports. They still want to use Sparkle. No hate to Sparkle fans. I don't like Sparkle. She's good with Archer and Danhang, but that's it, right? Like she she's just cope. When you're using her with Finon, it's either like you ignore her advance and just use her as a crit damage bot and skill point bot, or you use her advance and you just forget about her crit damage because that's not going to have uptime at all. So yeah, thank you for watching this video and see you later. Bye.